session and the open forum for August 21st. Julie, do we have any speakers tonight?
We do not.
Okay. With that, thank you. With that, for our open forum, Matt, do you have an update for us?
I do. I just have a few things that I wanted to run by you tonight as we're kind of heading into the last few weeks before school starts. Just some data to share. Hopefully that it'll be visible enough on the screen. So just wanted to share some enrollment. Can you see that? Is it a bit big enough?
Yep.
So as you'll remember, as we talked about when we were going through reductions, we're going to have to do a lot of shuffling, and my hat goes off to Kara and Linda Larson in our enrollment department, our principals, because we had to really reshuffle the deck when it came to students. And we sent out letters this spring to all parents whose children were not enrolled in their resident school boundary, and to our open enrolled parents as well, or parents of open enrolled students, to let them know that there may be a change, and that it was going to depend on a bunch of factors and could depend on grade levels, and just try to realign where kids were going to school. And for sure, we heard back from some people that weren't pleased about that. I think I wasn't the one on the end of the calls, but people, had in many cases arranged their life around where their kids went to school and conveniences and things like that. For the number of letters that we sent out, I think that overall it wasn't maybe as bad as I was expecting. But again, I wasn't the one fielding the calls, but all those went out, and so we had to realign East and West and Cohasset. I'll kind of show you what happened. Cohasset, so primarily the students that are enrolled in Cohasset now this fall are students that live within those boundaries, with only minor exceptions. And like we talked about, it's not as simple as one grade level being big, and that's the only grade level affected. If a family moves, that family might have 3 children in it, and some of the grade levels might be big, and some of them might be small in the individual schools. So this is what Cohasset looked like a year ago, approximately. Not necessarily the day school started, but approximately now. And I talked to Linda today, and she said these numbers are literally changing every hour. So I mean, this is like dipstick or a snapshot in time as of today. So you can see Cohasset in general is up 23 kids because we pushed a lot of Cohasset students back to Cohasset. Third grade, you'll see a trend across our elementary schools is large. So Cohasset overall up 23 kids. East is the building that saw the decrease because we cut sections out of there. So we had to push a lot of students out of East. And if you remember back again to the data that I showed you last spring, the number of kids that were at East that lived within the East boundary was way larger or smaller than the percentage of kids in the other schools that lived within their boundary. So East had the most students kind of open enrolled in there, whether they were from out of our district or within district. So a lot of students had to move out of East. And so you can see 30 kids moved from that school. You can also see in those sections there, going from those 5 sections in K1 and 2 to 4 in K1 and 2, bringing up those class averages. Again, third grade is sitting at about 30 right now at East as well. And then West took kids. You can see again, third grade up an average of 5, and it might not seem like 5 by it in and of itself might not seem like a lot, but it's 5 across 4 sections. So it's it's a bunch of kids that had to get shuffled going from 94 to 114. That's how the math works there. But East is up 34 kids in that building. So going back to east and west, you can see those two schools are within 10 kids of each other, and they've been as far apart as I think 60, maybe even 70 at times. So they're much more balanced. And, I one of the things way back when I started looking at the enrollment boundaries and attendance by boundary and the boundaries that were established for east and west, the attendance boundaries, regardless of regardless of demographics, the demographic breakdown, the numerical grouping of those two schools was real close in terms of how many kids were to attend each. So that boundary setting, as far as numerical attendance, was well done.
Matt, I don't know if you know, maybe it's on another slide here, but as far as free and reduced, how are we between east and west and Cohasset? Is there a balance, or is it?
No, I don't have that number, but
Okay.
of those three schools, Cohasset would have the least, west would have the next least, and east would have the highest number of free reduced kids.
So that really hasn't changed then on this? Okay.
No. And there's, as long as we're using geographical attendance boundaries to create the school attendance boundaries, much of that socioeconomic balance is going to be driven by housing.
Sure.
And whether it's market housing or other types of housing, there's really not a lot within the school district's control unless we really wanted to, what do they call it, gerrymander in the political, gerrymander the boundaries. So these are totals from east and west and Cohasset, just to kind of give you a perspective. You can see overall up 27. Again, point in time today, point in time last year. Last year's number guaranteed change between now and the start of school. This year, no, that number will change between now and the start of school. But you can see again the dynamics that are going on there. I think one of the good stories is that our kindergarten is up. That's always something we look at going, okay, what's happening with kindergarten? So I think that's a positive story to tell here. You've lived this, Kara. I mean, you've kind of been in and around this enrollment dynamic more than me for sure. Anything else you'd add to that story?
I just want to say the community has been really good. We sent out 450 letters to families. That's how many families were not living within their boundaries or were open enrolled. We received 350 back. So 100 families didn't respond. So everyone that responded got what they wanted, got to stay or change, so that was amazing. So in the end, it only affected 24 families that we had to move out of east to Cohasset or west. And most of them have been really understanding, and there's some that were unhappy, but overall, I mean, when you're sending out that many letters and affecting that many kids, I'd say overall it's been positive, and I just hope we never have to do this again.
One of the other dynamics, if you remember back to 2020 when we opened those schools, we had the pandemic going on, and so there were some dynamics there. We were trying to have classes look a particular way, and we found some cases where we moved a family where maybe the family didn't want, just to make sure that things worked out that way. So amidst all of this, I think things have turned out okay. But again, I don't want to lose the fact that this whole thing is being driven by the fact that we don't have the reductions. We've had to eliminate sections upon sections, east and west, and we opened those buildings. We had 5 sections in each of every grade in each school, I believe. Maybe with the exception of maybe one or two grades. So we had more sections across the board at east and west, and now we're down to both schools having 4 sections in every grade. And, without additional revenue, without our referendum passing, those enrollment numbers, the class size numbers are going to get worse. There's just no way around it.
Mr. Chair. Matt,
Yes.
When you look at East and West, one of the big concerns for East and West around equity, not just student numbers, was around what classes were available to the students, right? So every student in all of Grand Rapids, regardless in kindergarten, would get X, Y, and Z, whether that was something special. Because when I first came, each school had something a little bit different. Like somebody had art and somebody else didn't have art, but they had music or chess, but they didn't have that, and so part of that, is that still holding?
I'd say in terms of what the school district is offering the students in those schools, they're the same or similar. Now, each school may have, each school that we're talking about has their own parent-teacher organization, and sometimes those parent-teacher organizations have gathered together to do some unique things or provide some unique things. So we do have some folks that volunteer to teach chess, and they're volunteering, and they're doing that on their own time, and that's happening maybe in one building. And in another building that the PTO is arranged for other particular things. But in terms of what the school is offering in each spot, that's the same or similar. If we take a look at Big Fork, you can see the last 2 years there. Again, you kind of look at kindergarten, what's happened there, and then you see some shifting across the board. Certainly something to watch there as sections change. It's just interesting dynamics, like in the 20s to below the 20s, and it's above the 20s, below the 20s. It's just this really up, and you just see it and you feel it a lot more. If you're up there, you walk into, a grade, it's like, oh, there's 25 kids in here, and you walk next door and there might be 16, and you walk next, you can just feel the difference from section to section, from grade level to grade level there. Secondary, it's a little bit different to try and compare. I threw 6th grade in there from Big Fork. The upper grades in Big Fork are overall fairly steady or stable. Again, I'll say it again, this is just a dipstick, one day in time, comparing a year ago to now. The high school in town is pretty close to the same. I didn't include the ALC. That creates a whole nother, number of students in here. The middle school is where we've seen the biggest change. We're up 20 some kids at the middle school. Our 6th grade right now is it's hard to pick. It's the only spot where you can really pick out a grade, because when you get past 6th grade, the classes are kind of a mixture. So at the high school, it's hard to pick out a grade, say this grade has high classes than normal. 6th grade, however, at the middle school, we have higher than what we've had recently of class sizes. But again, that's changing even in the last couple of weeks as we get drops this time of year. This time of year, we've seen our 6th grade numbers come down a smidge, but we're still, in that 35 kind of area for 6th grade, which historically we've had before. It's not something we've had often, not necessarily something we like to have. But again, we have 2 fewer sections of 6th grade than we had 4 years ago. 2 whole sections. So overall enrollment is up in the secondary as well. If we got pressed on these numbers, they'd be different the next time we shared them. So, Kara, anything else to add to this?
No, other than you asked about the free and reduced and that disparity between the schools. East did have a lot more. It's not something that we ever looked at when we moved kids at all. And I want to thank all the parents who have already started filling out applications. So we will get our first numbers in October, what our free and reduced numbers will be at. I would say 1/3 of our parents have already filled out applications, which is amazing. And we're giving out the free forms or passes this year just to all events. So I really encourage people to apply for those.
Thanks, Kara. My kid sent it to me. It was on social media. So she said, if you want pressure, just have your child send that to you.
This is the perfect time to build a habit. And I think that's the goal right now, is while we have a little bit of this window, just to try to create the habit amongst our parents to fill out the forms. It's like we're buying crayons and gym shoes and filling out the form. It's just part of going back to school. That's the habit we want to create. I wanted to share some information about administrative staffing too. We've had some questions about that. We've also had a lot of changes. So Cohasset, I was just kind of looking back to 2020 again, partly because that's when the new schools opened as well. One lead principal there, one lead principal there now. But again, you'll see in here, a lot of our admin have additional duties. So our lead principal in Cohasset is the one who completes the title grant. She's responsible for managing and submitting that to the state. At East, when that opened, we had 2 full-time principals there, 1 lead and 1 assistant. But even then, that assistant was responsible for additional duties. They were responsible for Indian education as part of their job assignment. And fast forward to now, we have a lead principal who is still responsible for Indian education. And we have only a half-time assistant principal because of the cut we made there. Look at West Rapids, similar story, a lead and an assistant in 2020. But again, back, well, not in 2020, but actually I should forward that a little bit. That person eventually took over IEC last year. That assistant principal was responsible for not only the duties at West, but responsible for the duties at Itascan Education Center. We cut that assistant principal, and so now those duties got shifted. I also included a rough student to administrator average there. You can see that grow too. Does it, make sense? We have fewer administrators. We have enrollment that's not changing or getting larger, and so those numbers are getting bigger. Not surprisingly. At our gyms, a lead and assistant in 2020. Now a lead and assistant, but the assistant principals picked up other duties, picked up that Itascan Education Center. And I'd share that previous to that, there were 3 principals there in our gyms. There was an assistant, 2 assistants, and a lead the year before 2020. At the high school, in 2020, we opened that fall, a lead and 2 assistants. The ALC was the responsibility of that administrative team between those 3 principals. Fast forwarding to now, 2 principals, but again, one of them is responsible for the ALC as their part of their job assignment. Big Fork, one lead there and a lead, and then in 2020, that fall, we had another principal in this unit whose responsibility was to special education administration, and we eliminated that position. So a couple notes, I think, just to sort of culminate a great deal of this. In the fall of 2020, we had 12 principals. Again, if you rewind to the previous year, we would have had there'd be 13. 6 lead, 5 APs, and an assistant director in that unit, the principal unit, to 9 now. So 25% of that group has been reduced. The other thing of note, all of our APs have additional duties and responsibilities. Mr. Forbort's here. He's the one that is the lead at the ALC. So all 3 of our APs have additional duties. The ALC, Itascan Education Center, or split buildings. And 2 of our lead principals have additional duties. East Rapids lead, as well as our Cohasset lead. So our principals are burning the midnight oil. They're working hard. You can see pretty good sized numbers, especially in town here when you look at ratios. 430, 500 kids per administrator, and parents feel that, students feel that, teachers feel that, ESPs feel that, because that person that they need to talk to about something, a concern, just isn't as accessible.
Matt, I really appreciate you putting this out there. It certainly clears up some misinformation that's out in the community that has been floating around on social media and that. So thank you for doing that.
And I think if we were talking to teachers and other staff in the buildings, they depend on the principals because of things. If they need some support with students or need some support with problem solving or with a parent, that's kind of the first stop. So, I saw some things floating out there about 6 assistant principals. We I don't know when or if we've ever had that many.
And can I just add one to it too? These principals that share duties, their salary isn't doubled because they're sharing duties. We're just allocating their salary amongst all those duties. So they're not getting, poor Andy's not getting paid more to do the 2 duties. He's getting paid the same amount, but responsible for the 2 duties. the same with all of them that are up there.
And, you know, Andy having two duties to split, that doesn't just affect Andy, that affects Darren Hofstad too, the lead, because, you know, Andy needs to spend time at the ALC. He needs to spend time with those staff, those students. Same thing, Dan Adams at the middle school this year, he's gonna feel that because Angie Berg's gonna need to be at IEC, checking in, working with those staff, observing the staff. And Clayton literally is, there's gonna be times he's not there. He's not there half the time that he has been. So that's gonna affect Sean. That's gonna affect Bruce. So a lot going on there. I thought I'd share this slide again, how reductions have broken down the last couple of years. We've tried to look at all areas. Certainly the teacher number is the largest. It's also our largest bargaining group by far. Support staff, same thing. Larger number, largest group to start with. Principals and admin, smaller group, proportionately, one of the largest, the groups that's been hit the most. Activities, you know, as a percentage, our activities leadership with our ADs and such has been hit proportionally, probably as much as any group. And then just kind of, again, when we talk about 7.4, 7.5 million, this is how that breaks down.
And just maybe for the general public more than anybody, but the pay to our activities coaches and assistant coaches and stuff, that actually is determined in the teacher contract,
Right.
not in the budget of activities. And I think that's important for folks to understand.
Yeah.
And some of those coaches are paid out of other revenue streams that come in, like booster clubs and
Yep.
other things.
Yep, our booster clubs pay for a significant number of coaches when you add it up across the district. We still have some open positions right now. We have a language arts position open at Grand Rapids High School, music position at Big Fork. Our principals are working hard to figure out how to fill those gaps if necessary. We have some ESP openings, custodial openings, maintenance openings, food service, then guest staff across the board, whether we're talking guest teachers, bus drivers, maintenance, custodial, ESPs. Certainly if people are out there and looking for a flexible place, flexible position, we can accommodate that for sure. I think that's all I had.
Any questions or comments for Superintendent?
No questions, but again, just thank you, Matt, for putting that together. I think it clears up a lot of misinformation out there in the community, so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Maybe the last thing I'll just add, we reached a tentative agreement today with our last bargaining group that was still open. We're working on some language and polishing some things up to get the actual agreements to you to approve, and should have that done within the next couple weeks. Significant for our school district, considering the number of bargaining groups we have, the number of individual contracts we have, and the significance to the changes that we asked our employees to make when it comes to health insurance. Just a big thing for our groups to do and come alongside the district with. Big changes that will help our school district in the long run be more financially sustainable when it comes to health insurance and affordable. So I'm glad for all the work that went into and on your part, as well as the union negotiators, to get those agreements done. It really felt like people were trying to work together to get this done, and to have them all done before school starts is a big deal.
Superintendent, is this fairly typical to have all of our contracts done?
It's extremely rare. I'm not sure I've ever been, I'm not sure I've ever seen it happen, especially in a district this large with this many groups, to have all the bargaining agreements done before the start of school. It's very rare.
Good. Well done. And a note of thanks and appreciation to, based on your earlier presentation, the administration. That's a lot of extra work on people, and appreciate people coming together to make this happen. It's very powerful. And a note of thanks and appreciation to our teachers and staff. They're dealing with some tough class sizes and some additional expectations as well. And it is noted by the board, and it's much appreciated what a quality staff we have. Our students are very fortunate. Any other notes for Superintendent? We'll adjourn this for 3 minutes and come back for a board meeting. Board meeting to order. We'll stand for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. This is the regular board meeting for August 21st. And a note that Chairman Mark Schroeder is absent with notice today. The agenda has been distributed earlier, and we have amendments. I need a motion for approval of the agenda with changes to 8L, M, and N.
So moved.
Motion from Pat, second.
Second.
Second from Melissa. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The agenda is approved as presented. We have a public hearing on proposed property tax abatement from Greg Crow and Ehlers on remote. Greg, are you there?
I'm here.
Try it again. We lost you.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you.
Am I moving?
We see the property tax abatement for parking lot.
Perfect. So, thanks for having us here tonight. And I won't belabor things too much because the whole board has worked on a couple of bond issues previously, including an abatement bond. And if you remember, you're required to hold a public hearing and take questions in case anyone is really interested in the parking lot projects. So we'll do this before the meet or at the beginning of the meeting. And then you've got a couple of pre-sale reports that we shared on the actual bond issues and the resolutions to take action on. So you won't take any action on this hearing, but we'll provide the information that's laid out in the agenda that Julie just put up. So the last item then is public comments. So there's a little bit of background information on the next slide in terms of the statutory authority for the abatement bonds. But basically, the Minnesota Department of Education has allowed school districts to issue abatement bonds, but only for parking lots and parking structures. So this is a little bit different than like a city or county that could do a tax abatement for more economic development purposes, but there still is a requirement for serving the public good, and there's some financial limitations. On the next slide, just a quick reference to the scope of the projects. As you know, there's about $260,000 of bonds for projects, and these will be for parking lot improvements at Big Fork and Southwest. It's sort of walking through the process, but and it's detailed here a little bit more. I won't read all this to you, but it's the same process as described previously, where we identify parcels where the taxes are designated as abated, but really what MDE does is add the tax levy for the parking lot abatement bonds at the end. So really no taxpayer sees a change in their taxes, and the new tax levy is spread across all taxpayers equally. So you have processed through 1 through 3. Tonight we're doing number 4, and then number 5 will be tonight during your regular meeting, and then 6 and 7 will happen later on in the process. So there's a general timeline for the bond issue. So tonight on the 21st, you'll adopt the resolution approving the abatements separately from the resolution authorizing the issuance of the bonds. And on the 18th, we'll take bids for the bonds, and that night we'll bring the lowest bond bid, interest rate bid, to your board meeting for you to award the sale of the bonds to the lowest bidder. And then finally on October 12th, that's when you'll receive the bond proceeds for use on projects. The next slide just generally describes the projects and the bond issuance. So about $260,000 of bonds will be issued. That includes project costs as well as a portion of prorated portion of the bond issuance costs, because as you know, the abatement bonds are actually going to be issued in conjunction with a facilities maintenance bond issue. And those bonds will have a term of 7 years with taxes payable in 2024. All of those debt service levies for the facilities maintenance and abatement bonds are eligible for the school building bond ag credit, which applies both to your tillable kind of agricultural land, but also in ISD 318, more importantly, managed forests and some other timber lands also qualify for the agricultural credit. We will, in the pre-sale report, I'll highlight that the tax rate for the existing debt service levies you have is anticipated to go down for taxes payable in 2024. And the way we structured these bond issues is to keep that tax rate level with 2023 and then drop down going forward. So I'm happy to answer any questions, or now would be when you could take public comments or questions from the public as well.
Julie, do we have anyone signed up for comment?
We do not.
This is officially a public hearing on the proposed tax abatement from the board. Are there any questions or comments for Greg? If not, then we'll move on to the pre-sale reports on facilities maintenance and abatement bonds and certificates of participation. Greg?
Great. So you have those two reports in front of you. The pre-sale report on the certificates of participation is what I walked through in May, and there are really minimal changes to that in terms of structure and so on. But the designation of the bonds as the 2023B issuance relative to the 2023A, which will be the facilities maintenance and abatement bonds, that's really the main change in the resolution that you see on the certificates of participation. So with regard to the 2023A bonds, which is the facilities maintenance and tax abatement bonds, you'll note in the pre-sale report that they are to finance health and safety projects, including indoor air quality and asbestos removal, as well as those parking lot improvements that we've already talked about. And again, I'm gonna breeze through this fairly quickly because you did issue LTFM and abatement bonds in December of 2021, and it's all the same board. And then we also issued the school building bonds a year ago in August. And so you've had some experience with this recently, so you're pros, but feel free to stop me if I'm moving too quickly. I will note under the term and call feature that these bonds are a 7-year bond, 7 years and 4 months, and the payments will start in 2025. Because of the short term of the bonds, they won't be offered with a call feature. So typically, you'll hold bonds for 7 to 9 years before you can refinance them, which is what that call feature relates to. And since these are only 7-year bonds, you basically won't have the option of prepayment on the bonds. I'll note that the rating for the district is A- right now, and we will be having a rating call in early September to basically reestablish or reevaluate the district's financial condition, enrollment, local economy, and so on with S&P to review that rating. And then we can jump to, there's a lot of boilerplate on page 2 and 3, and 4, but there's a schedule on page 5, which will mirror the COP schedule to a certain degree from now going forward, you authorize the issuance of the bonds on July 31st. So tonight we're just really updating the financials and then having you authorize sale of the reauthorize because of the abatement component that was added relative to the projects funded in the bonds. And then, as I mentioned in the abatement presentation, we'll receive the bids on the 18th and you'll close on the 12th. There's a sources and uses schedule on page 6 that describes where the money's coming from, how it's allocated between the two purposes, and what we anticipate for costs of issuance and a modest amount of investment earnings. And then what would remain for project cost expenditures. Page 7 is a combined debt service schedule for the whole bond issue. And then page 8 and 9 are bifurcated debt service schedules for each portion. So the facilities maintenance portion first, and then the tax abatement portion. Then lastly, on pages 10 and 11 are the debt service schedules for your existing debt, and then in combination with the new bond issue. And if you look on the last page, you can see what I described in terms of the tax rate not going up, staying level between taxes payable in 23 and 24 for your outstanding debt, and then dropping for 25 and staying level until 2031 when this particular bond issue will be paid off. And then in relation to the COPs, I'll just remind you that that's a lease purchase. And so it's subject to an annual appropriation clause rather than being a general obligation bond. The one place that shows up in the pre-sale report is if you look at the rating. Typically, S&P will downgrade the rating by one notch due to the relative insecurity of an annual appropriation versus a general obligation. So if you maintain that A- rating on your GO debt, you would typically receive a BBB+ rating on the COPs. And then also the note that the COP is a 15-year schedule, so slightly different in terms of schedule, in terms of the maturities and term of the bond. If you look at the calendar on page 5, a lot of action has taken place on the COPs, but the balance of what happens, including the rating call, the official statement, bidding, and closing, will happen simultaneously with the 2022A or 2023A bond issue for facilities maintenance projects and the abatement bonds. The resolutions I said are as I mentioned, are fairly simple and straightforward. And you've seen them before, so I won't dwell on them, but I'm certainly open to answering any questions right now in regard to the resolutions or to the pre-sale reports.
Board, are there any questions, or Superintendent, any questions or notes or comments on the tax payment and or pre-sale reports? Hearing none. Greg, thank you very much for a very thorough explanation of everything we needed to know.
Sure.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
And I'll stay online here and just till you adopt the resolutions in case any questions come up at that time.
Thank you, Greg.
Sure. Have a great night.
Moving on to highest student achievement. A is to approve Big Fork High School field trip request to Italy and Greece in June of 2026. Joshua, are you there?
Yes, I am, sir.
Perfect. Joshua, what can you tell us about the field trip request?
Right. So Big Fork, we've done this before. I'm the head of all of the travel here at Big Fork now that Nasara is no longer here. We are hoping that you guys will approve a 2-week trip for Italy and Greece, which would be from June 14th 2026 to June 27th, 2026. I will say that one of the things that we're really trying to do up here in Big Fork is to show that just because you are from a small town does not mean that you shouldn't be able to go out and see what the world has to offer. And so we're really trying to push global perspective building for our students here. And so what better way than to actually take them out and show them the world.
So move, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. I have a motion to approve from Pat. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I have a second from Mindy. Questions, comments, thoughts?
Mr. Chair, Joshua, thank you for taking us on for the Big Fork students, Big Fork School. Greatly appreciate it. Thank you.
It's my honor. These are my kids. I love them.
Any other notes or comments before we call a question? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Joshua, it passes by unanimous consent. Congratulations.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it greatly.
And a discussion on school board student representative replacement process and timeline. Matt, do you have some notes for us?
Yeah, just kind of a quick discussion about where we're at with our student school board representation. Obviously, we went through a process of developing an application process, did interviews. We currently have a vacancy, and so just wanted to update the board on that. Over the last few months, we talked about just now that we've gone through this for a year and a little bit more, tightening up some things, working with the current sitting or one of the remaining student to get some feedback from her about how things have gone, what could make things better, as well as the replacement for the vacancy we have. We won't start that process until school starts. Looking to work with our student council perhaps this fall. And so one of the things I want to do is reach out to our advisor and kind of see if we can use that student organization as a way to tighten the connection between the school board and the position or the person that's representing the student body to the school district. So, the looking to the future, once school starts, we'll get that kind of opening out there, seek applications, and in the meantime, be trying to look at the policy, the practices, the application, so that we can have the best chance at a student that'll fill that role and not only have advantage back here for the board, but also advantage for their own future and growth. Julie, is there anything else that we were going to hit on?
The only thing we were going to talk about student code of conduct, incorporating that with.
Yeah, so one of the things that we kind of, as we've learned and gone through, our Minnesota State High School League has a code of conduct about, what is it that establishes a student, or how do we define a student that's, in good standing. And so looking to incorporate that too, as we, the school board itself, you have a code of ethics that you're responsible to, and how do we translate that into something that's parallel or, relevant to a student. So looking at incorporating that into our work too. So maybe when the time comes, looking at maybe a subgroup again, pulling that group together to help with the process to get that ready.
Matt, thank you. Any other notes or comments? Appreciate the work that you've done on this. Looking forward to have student voices at this table. I think we are a better organization when we have students at our table as well. Thank you. Safe and welcoming learning environments. Principal report from the Area Learning Center. Andy Forbart, can you fill us in?
Thank you, Chair Marty. Good evening, board. Good evening, Superintendent Gross. Happy to be here as the principal at the Area Learning Center. As mentioned, my name is Andy Forbort. Quick and brief update here, but just want to first talk about summer school. We had 200 students register for summer school towards the end of the school year and into June. 75% of those students were from ISD 318. In order to serve that capacity or that large number of students, we had 2 teachers that served summer school up in Big Fork on Mondays. We had 4 to 6 teachers Monday through Thursday at our area learning center, and we had 1 teacher that we added on a Friday. 3 sections at first, and we got it down to 1 section by the end of summer to help, again, fill that need and meet the demand that was there. Summer school ended on Monday, August 7th, and since that time hit, it's been about the transition to the new location. So our teachers, support staff at the ALC did a phenomenal job boxing things up, getting things ready. Great support from buildings and grounds and our technology department. Just about a week and a half ago, basically all technology was gone. I thought most things were out of the building. Just found out today we had a couple desks that were left behind, but no child left behind. And so we will look forward to hopefully finishing that move this week in coordination with buildings and grounds. Just met with the staff today over at Southwest. Superintendent Gross was able to join us. We had our technology people there to get teachers keys to their classrooms. I think there was a lot of anxiousness, but a lot of relief when they actually saw the space. Got a feel for it, and it's been a process, and it's looking very good. A little bit of ways to go, but we'll be ready for the first day of school. And just keep in mind, the ALC doesn't start on the first day like everybody else does. They spend the first week and a half calling families and students and getting enrollment meetings and getting that process going to figure out who actually is going to be attending and getting them in the day of the week that they're able to attend. And so their first official day would be on the 18th. When students are there. So any board members that you like to be in the buildings the first day of school, if it works to be there that week, every day that week will be a first day of school for the school year for those students. So please feel free to be there to welcome them and be part of our staff and part of that new building and location. Some things to talk about as far as fall planning programming. The last couple of years that I've been affiliated with the ALC, been here, we've been very proud of the Super Senior Friday program they started to try to track those students that didn't quite meet the graduation requirements, still get them there. For this next school year, we're gonna move that to Mondays. And the reason why is because looking at our school calendar, we have more Mondays off than we have Fridays. And so in order to meet the needs of those students, which are generally just a few weeks of school, having less Mondays doesn't impact them as much as it does students that are sophomores or juniors or current seniors. And then we also want to make sure that we hit those students that have the fewer weeks, so we're being efficient with our time, get their needs met, and then consolidate if we can. We are also looking at, we have a lot of students actually have emailed me personally because our ALC has been in limbo, no phones, no way to contact anybody. I've received emails from some Grand Rapids high school students that know they need credit recovery, but they don't want to lose their tie to the high school. So I'm really excited about their fact that they still want to maybe do the part-time thing where they get their core credits or credit recovery, but they stay attached to our building, they stay in our elective classes, and they stay part of our culture at Grand Rapids High School. And so I'm excited to share that. One thing that we want to make sure that we continue to do is acknowledge the career pathways opportunities. The LC offers a lot of programming, a lot of flexibility, but we can't get those hands-on or capstone courses like they can get in a course at Grand Rapids High School. Last but not least, excited to share, I've had a conversation with our building principals. Mr. Adams wasn't there, so I'm going to surprise him here. But really started thinking about our career pathway development in my 6 years here, working with Superintendent Gross from day one in that organization. Just started really identifying that it's right now the impression is that it's a high school concept. So I'm working with Mr. Patro with the Career Pathways program. We're going to get the pennants that you see in our high school entryway, both our pathways, and get people thinking and talking about them. They're going to be in all of our school buildings, not just the high school and Big Fork High School. So looking forward to that and getting that to be more of a my fourth and second graders see that and start thinking about that and identifying. So excited about that. So that's all I have for you, unless there's any questions.
Excellent. Thoughts, notes for Andy?
Just want to wish you well in a new building.
Thank you.
Andy, the new building is where?
It's the old Southwest Elementary location. Last spring into the school year, there's one wing dedicated to the ALC staff and students.
What's the name of that?
It's the Mr. Butnick wing. So yeah, he's the gentleman that created the ALC in 318. If I've been told right, I did not know him, but I know the family's been contacted. They're very excited and honored. And when there's ever a dedication or an opening, grand opening, and everything's ready to go in the next few months, I know they're excited to be part of that too. So,
Perfect.
so I think it's the wing that if you walk in from the outdoor hockey arena, that's the best way I can probably explain it.
Is that the entryway, Andy? Like to the ALC, is that where the entryway sits? Is right across from the hockey arena?
From the hockey arena, yep, that's where there's a security door,
Mhm.
key fob for staff, a security door entrance and that, so, yeah.
West side of the,
Yeah, that's right.
this way.
I think, Mr. Chair, too, I think there's gonna be some advantages and, Ms. Forward and I were just talking today about some opportunities that might be created by the new space, the rooms certainly are larger than what our teachers had before. All the rooms have windows. That wasn't the case before. There's a really neat, kind of commonsy area that, again, has windows, that I think will be good. And so I think there's some meeting areas and things, some advantages, and then the change too, and the things that staff have gotten used to. I don't know if there's other things that you think about or that they mentioned today. There was a lot of like, where should my desk go? Where should the kids go? And that kind of stuff. But I think there's some opportunities there that we can explore.
Excellent. Andy, please pass along our respect and admiration of the staff and people you have working with these students. It's really important.
Thank you, I certainly will.
Thank you. All right.
Mr. Chair, just
Yes.
want to point out again for the public why this move occurred. And again, going back to when our elementary schools were built, reducing our footprint, reducing our cost as far as renting space out. And we're eliminating rental expense because we're bringing them back under our umbrella at the Southwest schools. So again, another point to the community of great for staff. And I think it's going to probably service very well, but yet it's reducing an expense on our ledger side. So.
Great. Pat, thanks for that note.
Maybe to that point is Principal Forward. This is his other duty, right?
Yes.
You also would see him at the high school. So just kind of closing the loop on what we talked about earlier, like this is kind of a two-job approach, right? To principals. So thank you for doing that.
I appreciate that. I consider it all one because they're all our high school students and we serve them all. And I really like the fact that many of them want to come back. When I first got here, it was a one-way street, and not because anybody did anything wrong. It was just the way people knew it. And so, yeah, no, I appreciate it. I've had many conversations with Mr. Gross about demands and getting pushed or pulled too much. I've really felt honored to be able to serve both populations and consider them one population. And so, yeah, I think it's been a good match.
Nice, Andy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andy.
Under effective and efficient systems, we have the minutes from the August 8th regular school board meeting. I'm looking for a motion to approve.
So moved.
From Melissa, is there a second?
Second.
Second from Ben. Any questions or thoughts or changes? All in favor of approving the minutes as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The minutes stand approved. The claims for July 23rd in the amount of $9,744,993.01. Do we have a motion to approve the claims?
So moved.
Ben has moved. A second?
Second.
A second from Pat. Any thoughts, comments on the claims? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The claims stand approved. Thank you. Winding back to the resolution of intent to issue a certificate of participation, Series 2023A. Kara.
Thank you. I thank Greg Crow for explaining everything so well. And I really appreciate his involvement with the Grand Rapids School District. Not everyone is so lucky to get to still work with him. So thank you, Greg. What I'm just asking the board to approve the resolution to issue these certificates of participation. These will help fund the Big Fork project. We've discussed this many times in the past. So right now I'm just asking for your approval of the resolution you have in front of you.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Moved by Ben, second.
I'll second.
Second by Mindy. Comments, questions for Kara, thoughts? And I think Greg is probably still here, so questions for Greg as well. If not, we'll call the question to approve the resolution of intent to issue certificate of participation. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The resolution of intent is passed. Then a resolution granting property tax abatement. Kara?
Yes, thank you. This was the hearing that Greg held earlier and talked about the tax abatement. This $260,000 is strictly for parking lots. It's for the additional work that was needed at the Big Fork parking lot and the additional work that was needed at the Southwest parking lot because of city requirements. So we needed to issue additional bonds to cover those costs.
Do I have a motion?
So
From Pat, a second.
Second.
Second from Ben. Questions or comments or notes on the resolution granting property tax abatement for Kara or for Greg? Any further notes? We discussed this earlier in the meeting tonight, so it should be fresh in our minds. All those in favor of approving the resolution for property tax abatement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The resolution passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Kara. A resolution of intent to issue facility maintenance and tax abatement bonds. Kara.
Yes, final resolution for you guys. This one is it combines the issuance of the tax abatement bonds and the facilities maintenance bonds. We needed an additional approximately $2 million to finish the high school project because bids came in significantly higher than what was estimated. So these bonds will allow us to finish the high school project next summer and to issue these tax abatement bonds.
Do I have a motion for the facility maintenance and tax abatement bonds?
So moved.
From Melissa, do I have a second?
Second.
Second from Mindy. Questions or comments? We've got Greg here. We've got Kara here. We discussed it at some length earlier this evening. Hearing none, all in favor of issuing facility maintenance and tax abatement bonds signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The resolution passes unanimously. Greg, thank you. And thank you, Kara.
Glad to help. We'll see you in September.
Thanks, Greg.
Thanks, Greg. We have a healthy consent agenda tonight. Kara?
Thank you. Good evening, board.
I'm sorry, Casey.
That's okay. Tonight on the consent agenda, we have Eric Anderson, basketball coach resignation, Bo Castle, ESP replacement hire, Katie Christensen, ESP replacement hire, Rachel Edmondson, cross-country coach replacement hire, Shannon Fitch, softball coach resignation, Caitlin Garrison, special education teacher replacement hire, Evangelina Gutierrez, food service resignation, Ashley Kangas, ESP replacement hire, Cassandra Kroska, ESP replacement hire, Zachary Lovedahl, football coach resignation, Rachel Newman, agriculture education teacher replacement hire, Olivia Olson, facilities secretary replacement hire, Sherry Schrock, diving coach resignation, Bailey Seifert, teacher replacement hire, William Storm, football coach resignation, Paula Winker, school nurse replacement hire, Jesse Wick, special education teacher replacement hire, and Maisie Wilhelm, ESP replacement hire. I'm recommending approval of the consent agenda.
The consent agenda has no comment or I need a motion
So
from Pat and a second.
Second.
Second from Ben. Again, no discussion on this. All in favor of the consent agenda as presented, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Thank you, Casey. The full consent agenda is passed as presented.
Thank you.
We have the ESP general unpaid leave absence request for Tara Dingman.
Before you, you have a request for an approval of a general leave of absence. This is an unpaid leave. There is no pay or benefits, and the employee would not be eligible to bump any other position. If she does return, she could just accept an open position. Given there's no financial impact, I'm recommending approval of the leave of absence for Tara Dingman for the school year of 23-24.
I'd like a motion, please.
So moved.
Motion and a second.
Second.
I have a motion from Mindy, a second from Melissa. Any questions or comments about this leave of absence? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Tara Dingman's request for leave of absence is approved. We have head varsity coach contracts. Casey?
Thank you. Pursuant to Minnesota Statute 122A33, Subdivision 2, the board needs to annually approve varsity head coach contracts. Before you is a list of our current head coaches. Any that are listed as open would later come to the board as hires. I'm recommending approval of the contracts as listed for the varsity head coaches for 23-24.
So moved.
Motion from Melissa and a second.
Second.
Second from Pat. Any comments, conversations, questions? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the head varsity coach contracts signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Varsity coach contracts stand approved. Thank you, Casey. And one more, well, several more, but the ESP, the Educational Support Professionals contract. Casey.
Thank you. Before you, you have the educational support 2023-2025 two-year contract. The key points of the settlement include a $1 per hour increase for 23-24 and a 25-cent per hour increase for 24-25. The unit has agreed to move to the high deductible insurance plan with an HSA. The addition of work-related injury leave days, an increase in the longevity schedule, adding grandchild to sick usage pursuant to Minnesota statute, and moving to being paid by the pay period beginning in the second year of the contract. There's a number of other language changes without financial impact, and a complete contract has been provided. I'm recommending approval of the two-year 23-25 ESP contract.
So moved.
Motion from Pat, a second.
Second.
Second from Ben. Questions or comments?
Mr. Chair, I just want to thank our negotiating team, Matt, Casey, and Kara, as well as yourself, but as well as the ESP's negotiating team. We had a number of meetings, and I think we landed on a good spot for the ESPs as well as the district. As Superintendent Gross mentioned at the start of our meeting, we had a significant change in our health insurance, which we needed to have happen. And I think you'll see in all the contracts that occurred on all of them going forward. So I just appreciate the great work on both sides of the table to get this completed.
Agreed. It was a healthy session. Any other comments or thoughts? All those in favor of approving the ESP contract signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. ESP contract as presented stands approved. Thank you, Casey. The principal's contract, Casey.
The next contract is the principal contract, also a two-year contract for 23-25. The key points in that settlement include a 4% salary increase in 23-24, 2% salary increase in 24-25. Moving to the high deductible health insurance plan with an HSA. Sunsetting retiree health benefits for future hires. Adding limits to the amount the district will pay for health insurance. A match increase, a new longevity level after 24 years. Additional personal leave for 10-month principals. A vacation payout, and adding Juneteenth as a holiday as required by the state. A couple other language items as noted in the red line contract. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 principal contract as provided.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
I have a motion from Pat, a second.
Second.
Second from Mindy. Questions or comments on the principal's contract?
Again, Mr. Chair, I just want to thank the principals team as well as our team and another significant change here on the health insurance as we did in ESPs moving forward. I think we landed in a good spot for the district as well as the principals. So, thank you.
Thank you. Good note. Any other notes or comments on the principal's contract? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The principal's contract stands approved. Casey, thank you very much.
Thank you.
The director's contract, Casey.
The next contract is the director agreement for 23-25. The settlement is very similar to the principals. There's a tentative agreement that includes a 4% salary increase in 23-24, 2% increase for 24-25. Moving to the high deductible health insurance plan with an HSA. Sunsetting retiree health for future hires. A match increase. Adding grandparent and grandchild to sick usage pursuant to statute. Adding a coordinator level pay schedule to the director contract to reduce some of our individual contracts. A new longevity level after 24 years of service, and adding Juneteenth as a holiday. Some minor language changes that are noted in the red line contract. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 director contract as provided.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion by Pat, second by Melissa. Notes or comments on the director's contract?
Mr. Chair, I make my same comments. I won't repeat them again, but again, I think we landed in a good spot for the district and for the directors as well. So moving forward.
Agreed. Any other notes or comments? We are well served by this unit. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The director's contracts stand approved. Thank you, Casey. Then the teacher's tentative agreement. Casey?
Thank you. So before you and the next couple contracts, we had a very tight turnaround with getting our insurance language changed. We just want to make sure that each of our units has adequate time to review those red line contracts. So the next 3 contracts you have revised to just approving the tentative agreement. So I'll talk through those tentative negotiated settlements, and then once that red line contract has been reviewed by both sides, we'll bring that to a future board meeting. So this particular item is a summary of the teacher's tentative agreement for 23-25. The key settlement includes a 4% salary increase in 23-24, a 2% salary increase in 24-25, moving to the high deductible insurance plan with an HSA, an increase in subbing payment for subbing during prep, and also adding payment for combining classes, adding grandchild and grandparent to sick usage, adding paid parental leave days, and capped the sick leave accumulation, and added a retirement incentive to the contract, and a match increase. There were other minor language changes with no financial impact. And again, a complete copy will be provided, a complete contract will be provided once it's ready. We're recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 tentative agreement with the teacher unit.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Pat,
Second.
second by Melissa. Comments or notes on the teacher's tentative agreement.
Mr. Chair, I understand why we're doing a tentative agreement. We have some timelines on our health insurance change, open enrollment periods coming up. And again, that was one of our main focuses on our contracts this year, to get that change from where we were at on a platinum plan to a high deductible plan here now. So I appreciate the work, Casey, of getting this to the board for tentative approval. So
Thank you. Any other notes or comments on the teacher's tentative agreement?
I would just add that the increasing subbing payment during prep and any payment for combining classes is part of what's happening with the class sizes being so large and lack of subs in the system. And so it's kind of a whirlwind a little bit. And so thanks to all the teachers and administration who have stepped up into those classrooms to pick up extra duties. It's happening all over.
Great. Any other notes or comments on this tentative agreement? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The teacher's tentative agreement stands approved. Casey, thank you.
Thank you.
The secretary and administrative professionals tentative agreement.
Before you, you have a summary of the Administrative Professionals Unit 2325 tentative agreement. The key pieces of that settlement include a revision of the title from Secretary Unit to Administrative Professionals, a 4% salary increase in 2324, 2% salary increase for 2425, adding Juneteenth as a holiday, increase in life insurance to align with other contracts, an increase in 9 and 10-month sick leave, an addition of after-hours phone call pay for some of our lead secretaries, an increase in the longevity schedule, again, moving to that high deductible medical plan with an HSA, and moving to a pay by the pay period beginning in year 2, 24-25. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 admin professionals tentative agreement.
so moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion from Pat,
Second.
a second from Mindy. Questions, notes, comments? Hearing none, all in favor of approving the secretary and administrative professionals tentative agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The secretary and administrative professional tentative agreement stands approved. Thank you, Casey. On to the service unit tentative agreement.
Before you, you have a summary of the service unit 2325 tentative agreement. The key points in that contract are a 4% salary increase in 24-25, 2% salary increase for 24-25, adding Juneteenth holiday. There's a mechanic, maintenance, food service bookkeeper, and food service production coordinator reclassification, increased longevity schedule, an increase in the weekend shift differential for food service employees, an addition of after-hours phone calls paid, adding stipends for new employees who are obtaining or upgrading their boiler license, moving to a high deductible health plan with an HSA, and moving to being paid as they work or by the pay period beginning in year 2. Other language changes with no financial impact. And again, a complete contract will be brought to a future board meeting. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 service unit tentative agreement.
Thank you. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Motion from Pat, second.
Support.
Second from Ben. Any questions or comments on the service unit tentative agreement as presented? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor of approving the service unit tentative agreement as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The agreement passes unanimously. Thank you, Casey. On to the confidential administrative assistant contract.
Thank
Casey.
you. Before you, you have the confidential administrative assistant 2-year contract for 23-25. The key points in that settlement include a 4% increase in year 1, a 2% increase in year 2, moving to the high deductible medical plan with an HSA, adding in a healthcare savings plan, a match increase, and adding Juneteenth as a holiday. Other minor language changes with no financial impact, which are provided in the red line contract. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 confidential administrative assistant contract as provided.
Do I have a motion?
Moved.
Motion by Ben, second.
Second.
Second by Mindy. Questions or comments concerning the confidential administrative assistant contract? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the contract as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The confidential assistant contract stands approved. Thank you, Casey. And yet one more, Director of Teaching and Learning.
Before you, you have a 2-year contract for the Director of Teaching and Learning for 23-25. The key settlement includes a 4% increase in year 1, a 2% increase in year 2, an addition of a vacation payout, adding limits to the amount the district will contribute for health insurance, moving to a high deductible medical plan with an HSA, revising the longevity schedule to match our individual administrator contracts, a match increase, and adding Juneteenth as a holiday. Minor language items with no financial impact as provided in the red line contract. I'm recommending approval of the 2-year 23-25 Director of Teaching and Learning contract as provided.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Motion by Pat,
Second.
second by Melissa. Any questions or comments on the Director of Teaching and Learning contract? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the contract as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The Director of Teaching and Learning contract stands approved. Thank you, Casey. And yet one more. Casey, GRIP Coordinator.
Thank you. So before you, you have a copy of the GRIP Coalition Coordinator contract. This will also be a 2-year contract for 23-25 school years. You had previously approved the hire of the new employee on the 8/8 board meeting. So today the contract is being provided for consideration. There were no significant changes from the previous employee that has recently vacated the position. I'm recommending approval of the GRIP Coalition contract as provided.
Do you have a motion?
So moved.
Mindy, do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Ben. Any comments on the GRIP Coalition Coordinator agreement? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The contract for the GRIP Coordinator stands approved. Casey, thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
And what are you going to do with your life now?
I'm not sure.
Mr. Chair,
Please.
I know Superintendent Gross mentioned it, but I think it's worth saying again. And hearing today that the bus drivers have a tentative agreement. In my time on a school board, this is the first time that all of these contracts have been settled prior to the start of school. And I think it's probably pretty unusual across the state for the 300 plus school districts for that to happen. So my hat's off to Matt and Casey and Karen, all the negotiating people on the other side of the table that involve these contracts to get this done. And again, I think our goal is to, well, I know it was, to change our health insurance plan to the high deductible. And we accomplished that together. And when I say together, not just from the school board or school district, but employees as a whole working together. And it just didn't happen overnight. It started with Dan Adams and his leadership at the Fringe Benefit Committee on the educational component to why we needed to change and why it was important for our district to move forward in the direction that we did with the health insurance. So again, just thank you to everybody involved on both sides of the table. great task. And I think it's going to help us position ourselves in a much better position going forward. So thank you to everybody involved.
Thank you, Pat. And I would echo those comments. The tremendous effort of the entire school community to come together to resolve these is very impressive. It's great to be a part of a team that's all pulling together. Much appreciated. Item R is to approve the 23-24 ISD 318 handbooks, and we have a list of them. Because of the legislature this past year, there have been a wide number, over 30 changes that are required in each of these handbooks. Matt, did you have any notes or comments?
Yeah, it's just like you said, there are a variety of changes that were kind of driven by changes in legislation. Our principals and directors and administrators do a good job of trying to keep up on the legal requirements, and I've updated these to reflect that.
Do I have a motion to, I intend to do all of the 9 handbooks together unless somebody prefers to do them individually. Do I have a motion for all 9 handbooks?
So moved.
I
Second.
hear Mindy with a motion to approve and a second from Melissa. Thank you. Any notes or comments or concerns or questions about the district handbooks? They're all completed at this point and ready to go. Hearing none, I'll call the question. All in favor of approving all 9 district handbooks signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. All 9 handbooks stand approved as presented. The 23-24 school board goals, that's us. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the board. We discussed these at a workshop last week. We spent some time reviewing our progress on our 22-23 school board goals, which the majority of were complete. A couple of them were finishing up and kind of are reflected in here. Also took the time to provide sort of a cross-reference or alignment with our strategic directions. You see that column number 2. I think it's worth noting that as we've continued to proceed in our work at this level on the strategic plan, and also now carrying into our work with our district administrators or building administrators and our building goals, we're starting to see more and more alignment now in between all of those systems. And so we have in your proposed goals today, student achievement goals in reading, math, and science that will be reflected, that are also reflected in our operational plan, reflected in principals' goals, reflected in building goals. And so that's kind of a thread working all the way through, which, you know, at the end of the day, our main goal is student achievement, high student achievement. And so I'm excited to see that level of alignment happening. We had a meeting of teacher leaders last week, and there were some in the room that recognized and appreciated that too, that kind of things are, that feeling of not sure where things are going and what we're doing is starting to get clear about what we're working on, and that provides a sense of direction and stability. So certainly what we're looking for. So I think we have a good set of goals here, and like I said, I recommend approval based on the discussion we had.
Have a motion?
So
Motion by Pat, second?
Second.
Second by Ben. Comments, questions, notes?
Mr. Chair, Matt, I just appreciate your leadership on this and making us part of this goals. And in the end, we're going to be in a better spot as we continue to move forward, serving our students with these. So thank you.
Agreed. I'm proud to be a part of a board that takes this very seriously, working intentionally with administration and improving the environment for our students. Any other questions, comments, notes?
Mr. Chair, the one thing that I
Yes.
just kind of add quickly, question was asked during our discussion last Monday. Do we have everything we need? Do we have all the resources we need to get this done? Looking at these goals, looking at our operational plan. The reality is some of it's going to be really, really tough, if not, beyond tough to get done, given the scarcity of resources we have now after the reductions. And, we're going to continue to pursue. We've demonstrated gains in literacy and improvements in a lot of different ways, but there's no way to get around the fact that if we were resourced the way we need to if we're resourced the way that most school districts in the state are, that our ability to fulfill not only the community expectations, but our goals for ourselves would be just that much greater. And so I don't want to give the impression that to anybody that these goals are low-hanging fruit or easy, or that the impact of the reductions that we've made and our budget challenges doesn't show up here. It shows up in both the amount of time it'll take to get there, and all kinds of other things. So I want to make sure to point that out.
Thank you. We have challenges. Any other notes or comments on board goals? Hearing none, we'll call the question. All those in favor of approving the school board goals as presented signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. School 23-24 school board goals as presented stand approved. We need to schedule the canvassing meeting and appoint 2 school board members to the canvassing committee for the November 7th, 2023 special election. We have the schedule coming up. We've been in contact with the county that's going to manage the process for us. As a school, we need to have a canvassing meeting. And it would meet, I'm proposing to meet Tuesday, November 14th at 3 p.m. A week after the election.
Mr. Chair, I'll volunteer.
I have one volunteer. I need a second.
I'll say it.
I have Pat and Ben to volunteer for the canvassing board for November 14th at 3 p.m. in admin 117. With that, we're going into partnerships to approve the early services, invest early services agreement. Matt?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The agreement in front of you today is an agreement that the district has had with Invest Early for a number of years. And there have been a few modifications made to this that aren't substantive, but just reflect the changing nature of Invest Early and some of the different ways that ISD is having to use its resources in order to accommodate the funding changes with Invest Early. But in terms of substantive changes here, nothing that our staff here aren't expecting or that we're not prepared for.
Okay, do I have a motion to approve the early invest early services agreement?
So
By Ben, and a second by Mindy. Questions or comments? Melissa, do you have any notes regarding that?
No, this is something that we've been working on for the last few months and meeting with different people. So it's required a lot of work, but again, everybody's stepping up to the plate and seems to be going in a good direction.
Good, thank you. Any other notes or comments? Hearing none, call the question. All in favor of approving the Invest Early Services Agreement signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The Invest Early Services Agreement stands approved as presented. We're looking for board reports. Anybody want to go first?
Mr. Chair, I really have nothing to report outside of last time board meeting, and now I just finished up on contracts. And as I commented earlier, it feels good that we have them all completed going forward. And I would just say welcoming back our staff and students. Start of the 23-24 school year. With all of that behind us, it's going to be a great year going forward.
Thank you, Pat. Mindy?
Nothing from me?
Yeah, nothing? Melissa?
We had a wellness committee a couple weeks ago, and that I would just say is really taking the survey and taking it to heart and bringing in some new ways of working with teachers and staff and showing appreciation, because certainly there was a lot of stress that showed up in that survey. So kind of how do we put that to its best use? We have gotten some grant money that we have to decide how to possibly distribute to schools, site teams, so that they could possibly do what would work best for their school as opposed to doing something blanket wise. But those are conversations that are happening right now. So starting to put that into action. A lot of work of Polly has done some really good work on that. So I would defer to her for more information.
Thank you.
We had IS board meetings, and again, similar to this one, lots of hires, lots of position changes, lots of contracts. We're still in the middle of some significant negotiations and reworking some contracts that's taking place now. So that's kind of the rest of my week.
And I would just make a note of thanks and appreciation to all board members. I know that you've all put in a lot of time on negotiating contracts and extra meetings, and it's been a row, but your service has been very much appreciated. Thank you. Matt, do you have
Yeah, it's a lot of welcoming backs and trainings happening most of the last couple weeks. And as we look ahead, we have ESPs coming in for training on the 31st. A week from tomorrow, we welcome all the teachers back. Denise Specht will be here, the president of Education Minnesota. So
wow.
I think that's a good indication of being a regional leader. We had new teachers in over the last couple of weeks too, to orient and train. Not as big of a room as we've had in the past, of course, but still good to welcome those folks to the team. Tomorrow night, Fill the Hill, always kind of a good way to kick off the fall, and we've got a couple key things outside over the next couple of weeks, and so fingers crossed for good weather, and so that we'll keep our eyes on that. And I just want to acknowledge Casey's work over the last few months. All of us have been involved in different groups and to varying degrees, and Casey's been all of them all the time, tracking all this. And when all of it's been condensed in such a short time, to do that, I know that's put an extreme amount of work on her in a short amount of time, and getting things ready even for tonight in red line versions and as accurate, accuracy is key, and keeping all these things straight is tough. And so I just want to thank you for all that, Casey. It's no small feat. So
Thank you, Casey.
Yes, I think thanks from the entire board, Casey. Is that it, Matt?
Yep.
Okay. Meeting announcements. School board committees and meeting dates are posted on each agenda. They can be found on the district website and on the designated posting site at the ISD 318 Administration Building. We have our next school board meeting, September 5th, believe it or not. Any other business to come before this board? Hearing none, we stand adjourned.